Folks can't seem to get here.
Maybe that's my thing.
They're just swimming off. All that. Are we waiting, Miss Shirley?
Yes.
Everybody's waiting on me, and I apologize for being late this morning. Let's get today's public meeting of March 21st, Tuesday, it's 10:04 started. First of all, I'm gonna have comments from the public, if we have a public out there.
We have one person in attendance on Zoom, no comments.
Don't seem to have comments, so we're gonna move on then. Let's go first to the consent agenda, and that's approve the minutes. Gonna be out of here in about 10 minutes, we keep moving like this. That includes the minutes of the 21st and February the 28th, we had a workshop and the harbor master's inspection. I had a motion from Mike, a second from Sue, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? No nays, motion's carried. We're gonna go to the reports now. Agenda item 3, receive the financial report, revenue fund, tariff report, town agent report, payment report, revenue and expenditure report, balance sheet, and profit and loss cash flow. Sue, comments?
Just the usual, we start off with the tariff report. I don't mean to rush y'all, but I do need to leave here in 5 minutes to go to a doctor's appointment. So if y'all have any questions, after I leave, please don't hesitate to give me a call and I'll try and help you out.
Was there anything noticeably different than our usual? Anything we need to get our attention focused on?
On the tariff reports, not necessarily. The aging report basically has the usual notes there that Rachel includes. Where we just have, letting you all know what our collection efforts are and or if we were successful in getting the customers to get set up on auto draft so they don't get behind the next time. So the
I
normal,
remember that we will reach out to our harbor master on agenda item, not agenda item, but on the aging report, third demand letter mail to customer. Let's discuss that with the harbor master, if y'all don't mind.
and then on the payment report, this is just your usual payments that we detail out for you and let you know what has been paid through accounts payable each month. And your revenue and expense report, which starts on page 42. And this basically shows you year to date, your revenues are exceeding your expenditures. So you are positive as of February 24th compared to budget, with your revenues coming in greater than what your expenditures are. You've got your balance sheets, which essentially is just showing you what your cash positions and accounts payable are.
That is up from last time. Last time was 600,000. We're at 717 this time.
Yes.
Let's see, there's a page 28 or something, probably capitulation. I've never seen that.
On page 28,
I understand.
I'm not an expert in tariffs, so recapitulation. I would have to research that and get back with you guys.
From vendor, from their inspector of vendor. People who are loading and unloading barges. Recapitulate, confirming.
Yeah, just over short tons. That the barge here.
And they're before and after. That's all there.
Well, there you go. And then the final report is the starts on page 55, which is the port snapshot report. And this report essentially takes the revenue and expenditure report, tries to break it out by each of the individual harbors, and also allocates any overhead to each of those, trying to show where if they're standing alone or not on their revenues and expenditures. The final page is essentially recapping your cash, any encumbrances, which are purchase orders that have been approved and issued, but the expense hasn't come through, and your budgeted capital improvement projects, and any bond payments, future bond payments that may be outstanding that have not been paid yet. Again, I apologize for rushing y'all, but if there are any questions that y'all have after we're gone, please don't hesitate to have Jody get them to me, and I'll see if I can answer your questions.
Just have one going back on the Port Commission snapshot, page 55. Harbor Refuge has seen a significant decrease there. January was 32,000, and this month we're at 7,000. We had an extraordinary payment in January, or what was the big decrease there?
If I remember, we had, so the tariffs were pretty high last month, right?
Yeah, if you look at page 56, it kind of gives you a detail of the revenues that are coming in. So oil in January was $12,516. In February, it's only $5,064. That's a decrease of $10,000 month over month. And then fertilizer, you had 4,000 in January and 0 in February.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody comments or questions? Yeah, you're available to comment. Slow down on what we're getting.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. We're gonna move on then to agenda item number 4, receive status report. It's been item 4, renovation of nautical landing marina breakwater. And for our pleasure and entertainment today, we have Matt Glaze in. We haven't seen him in quite a while.
Well, maybe y'all can hear me because apparently y'all don't ever get to hear me very well. I think you just
We missed you anyway.
So I'll give you a quick update where we are in this thing. And it's not going to be quick and getting started just because we're working on some things, but we have submitted all what is required to Parks and Wildlife. We're waiting on one approval from them to get this to give us the green light, and then it has to go through a Fish and Wildlife approval. So this is a Fish and Wildlife, U.S. Fish and Wildlife grant funded through Parks and Wildlife. So they have to go through one more hurdle. I talked to the man today, and he claims a couple months, 2 to 3 months, we should be ready to go to bid on this project.
By September, we should be ready to begin.
Thank you.
Excited right here.
I'm thinking this year. So there our previous contact is no longer with Parks and Wildlife, so we have a new contact, and so the new contact seems very responsive. So we're cautiously optimistic. We look forward to getting this moving as much as y'all, because I think this grant started in 2020.
We've been working on it since 2018, 2019, I want to say. But yeah, I think once we got it, yes, it was 2020.
But it looks like got a path that we're gonna get moving on. But from our end, everything's ready. And so we're waiting on the biologist to check off on this one last submission we have, and go through that approval. We should be good to go.
Move on into agenda item B, and that's the CDV MIT Coastal Resiliency Project and Restoration. What progress have we made there?
Well, in your packet, I included the monthly progress report that was dated March 6th. Covers the progress that was made during January and February of this year. And also in the packet, I included a copy of a PowerPoint presentation that was given during our last project update meeting on February 22nd. During the meeting, Mott McDonald reviewed the coastal engineering analysis, which they performed on the alternatives that were selected for consideration at our last meeting. There were 2 alternatives studied, which were labeled 1D and 2A, which are in that presentation. The original conceptual plan that was defined in the grant application is shown on page 5. It involved a breakwater from Fisher Harbor to the channel next to the pier, and then from the north side of the pier to near Scully's, with oyster reefs all along the bay side of the breakwaters and new marsh construction between the breakwater and the shoreline. Now, alternate 1D is very similar concept. It adds a little kick out on the breakwater near the boat channel next to the pier. Alternative 2A replaces the breakwater north of the pier with only oyster reef creation and creates the height and increases the height and width of the breakwater to the south of the pier. Earlier analysis showed that providing the expense of the breakwater north of the pier did not really provide any significant additional protection that only providing oyster reefs would. So we thought it would make more sense to put the money, the expense of the breakwater on the south side by increasing its size and height and width. And this is where it does make a difference. So the detailed analysis confirmed these initial findings, and it was decided to pursue alternative 2A in the Corps of Engineers permit application, which is shown in your in the presentation. If you go to one of the back pages of that PowerPoint, it illustrates the alternative 2A to give you an idea what we're looking at.
While we're at this point on page 74, where it's talking about alternative 2A and 1D, you can see at the far bottom of those photos, there is existing riprap. It goes all the way down that shoreline in the far south of the Fisher tract.
Mm-hmm.
You see that straight line?
Mm-hmm.
Last time we talked about that, we were not sure about riprap there, and it's there all the way out.
Okay, I mean, this project, let me show you if you go to, if you go to the very last page, which is page 103 of the packet, it's page 39 of the presentation. it shows the recommended alternative 2A. And so you can see the larger breakwater to the south of the peninsula, and then the oyster reefs and the marsh on the north side. And that's the option that we're going with. You can go back and you can, some of the exhibits will compare that with 1D, and there's not a whole lot of difference. And so again, it made more sense, instead of wasting money putting the breakwater on the north side, is to use that money and put it on the south side, make it bigger and stronger, and just put the oyster reefs and the marsh on the north side. And so that's where we're at with that project.
We talked about that meeting, but in fact, there's no connection. Everybody that walking that. So-
Correct.
So it's private land, they're right next to the lower end. And sooner or later, I had to figure out that. We have the ability for people to get up and.
And right. And that's something to think about in the future, whether we really want people out there or not, because, at this point to do that, it's cost prohibitive for the amount of money we've got for this project. If we were, and it's something that could be done later in the future, but it wouldn't be involved. I mean, you have to think, you probably need ADA access, and there's a lot of other things that would go along with that. But that is something that could be looked at in the future. One area that they did identify that was of a slight concern, that they're still studying and figuring out how we can best address it, is once the breakwaters are in place, the models show that we don't get as much circulation in the against the shoreline or in the harbor as they would like to see. That's not to say we don't get a whole lot right now either, but they're studying that and trying to come up with some solutions to that issue.
As far as access to that, once we include that one section in Smith Harbor, there were kayakers all over the place, and if you put a breakwater, accessibility will certainly be there. From my standpoint, and as a port commissioner, I worry more about the wave action and the sediment in both the Smith Harbor and the Marina Landing Harbor, more so than the oyster reefs and the habitats. Hopefully those are getting addressed, because that's our concern. It is the wave action.
And that's what these, right, that's what the breakwaters are designed. If you look at the charts, the breakwaters are designed, they reduce the wave height.
Pretty severe storm, over that. I don't remember what the number was. What do you remember? The legislative 50, 60 miles an hour. Maybe.
I don't remember. It's
It does protect it more than I thought. If you have a hurricane, it's obviously the wave's going to come over.
So the 2A at 103 is the preferred recommendation. Yes.
yes. Yeah. And I think if you go back, you can,
Raise that elevation
yeah, I mean, we're putting,
from 6 to 8 feet, I believe, if I remember correctly.
yeah.
And the footprint was actually wider. I don't know what that number was. But the elevation was a couple feet.
But you can go back and compare some of these illustrations between alternate 1D and alternate 2A, and there's not a whole lot of difference. And so, which shows that putting the expense of the breakwater on the north side isn't really doing much. And so we want to take that rock and put it in with the breakwater on the south side, make it taller and bigger, and so it's going to last there longer. And then put all the oyster reefs and the
reason I bring it up is, I'm sure they've done the geological wave action studies, is it's got that little dog leg that turns out. Like we're gonna be catching something coming from.
No, what-
Day and forcing it into our own harbor.
No, what that does, I mean, and that came out of some of the earlier studies, because we got a gap between the pier or between the peninsula and the breakwater. Putting that little kick provides additional protection, because we, right, we can't leave it, we can't cover it, obviously, because we got boats got to come in the channel. So because of where the waves are coming from, that will help protect the peninsula.
Okay.
And that's why it's like that. Yeah.
Wind up like the causeway. We just got that boat launch there, and the next day it's already captured that much silt.
No, and they've got a theory behind that, you know, I mean, they're telling me, and again, we're looking for funds to do at least a coastal engineering study, but their theory is that it's coming from the groin, the northern groin on the beach, that it's kind of wrapping around from there and depositing in that area. Yeah.
Guys, just a comment, if we could capture this. Before we get started with this project, can we take an outboard and get some soundings of the entrance steps?
Period, they're dredged.
Well, they've done, they've done a lot of work and got soundings and.
The entrance to the marina
Mhm.
and the Smith Harbor. Those two are critical, especially the Smith Harbor one. If we could just get some documented readings of what those channel depths are, so we can know what's happening over time.
Get a baseline is what you're trying to get.
Yeah.
Well, I know we've got a baseline, I'll check with Mont McDonald, but I think they've got that. And we had what we had done.
Make it prominent so we can go back and check.
Yeah,
what's
okay,
happening.
sure.
We do have it on the, we have it on the.
Right.
A couple of years ago, I did all that.
And this is 2025. Yeah. And
Yeah, I mean, right, yeah, because we'll be applying, they're working on the application now for the core permit. I think that's scheduled to be submitted sometime in June or this summer. And then, you know, the core could take a year and a half. We're kind of at their mercy. And while their core is working on it, Mont McDonald will be working on the detailed design, with the understanding there could be some things that hopefully only slightly change, but they'll be in communication with the Corps. But of course, we can't get going until we get a permit.
unforeseen delays. Move on then to agenda item C, and discuss property and property values and valuations.
Well, I didn't mention real quick, just the restore project, just real quickly. I did mention last time, I think actually the day of the Port Commissioner, we did receive a draft copy of the contract. I have reviewed that, and we did have some comments. They were using an incorrect version of one of our earlier applications that was incorrect. Anyway, we got all that caught and corrected and submitted that back to TCQ. And so they're working on making corrections to the contract.
So the restore project is still on hold then, or still?
Well, it's not on hold. It's, we don't have a contract to sign yet. They sent us the contract document. We reviewed it and there were some errors in it, and we submitted that back to them for correction. So that's where we're at.
Thank you. We're going to move on to agenda item C, the property values and evaluations. We had a special meeting, of course, all y'all were invited to a workshop. It wasn't a workshop. And we had a presentation at Brown Ridge. And we had the city, not city, the department chief appraiser there, along with Michael Wire, myself, Jody, and Jim Rugler. And the presentation, was not what we had anticipated. At present, our rates are lower considerably than what the presentation was from Valerie on our leases. But the information that he had was somewhat weak. And Jody and Jesse Hubble had agreed to provide him with improved information, which will make the disparity that much more significant. The big thing was that the improvement to the bulkhead in front of Helena cost the city and the Port Commission and the the bond that we did was at like $4,000. Look, he inputted $800 a foot. So his estimate was way off. And we had some discussions, and he said he was going to check with his sources. Well, in my opinion, his source should have been the city of Port Lavaca. This is what we paid, was $4,000. We had used the same company that had done the port in Palacios, and that was at $2,500 2 years prior. So the basis that he had was incorrect. And Jesse and Jody both said that they were providing with new information, and I expect that we will get a more acceptable report. The other report to me was unacceptable, in my opinion, and Mr. Hubble expressed the same concerns as chief appraiser. So we still are not at a good place on the valuations. I wish that y'all had been there to receive some of that information, provide some questions. Ms. Jody, comments on that?
We provided him the additional information on the construction dock, and he said, yeah, he had no idea that our pilings went down as deep as they did. He didn't realize it was that big of a construction. And he's made edits to the report. The only thing that's still outstanding, and he wants everything before he resubmits the report, is on some information to him on detailed information on the storage tanks that are the harbor refuge. And we are working on that, trying to get specific information on how big they are, what they are, if there are any certifications, that sort of thing. And Jim's working on trying to get that. And it will provide that to Jesse as well, because they don't have that either.
I think that we compared us to Galveston and Corpus and Houston, but it did include Palacios and Cedar, which I think is a more comparable model to who we are.
And he has included, told me he's contacted everybody that we mentioned. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
One comment. I was there too.
I was there. I apologize.
Well, I went back and I looked at the detailed drawings for that bulkhead. And they are extremely, that bulkhead is very well done.
Mhm.
It ain't going nowhere.
Right.
And $4,000 a foot, that's an accurate number.
Yeah.
And that bulkhead is built like all of the rest of them. If we do any more bulkheading in that harbor, it should be built to that standard.
Yes. And that is that's how the rest of them really were built as well.
Shovel ready, we can just find the money.
Yeah.
We need another 500-800 more feet, but money's a little hard to come by.
Hopefully one of these days we'll find somebody who wants to be there bad enough that they'll put the bulkhead in for some kind of a reimbursement agreement over time. And maybe we'll want that to upfront it. But building to that standard is what we should do.
Well, that should be a minimum goal. Again, if we can find another EDA grant or some help somewhere, but we know, and the cost has gone up, I'm sure, significantly.
I was kind of wondering about that cost until I looked at those drawings. And it is extremely well done. We should have been in trouble with it.
They,
Yeah, better engineering.
Yes, it was.
So then
G and W did the work on that, and they did the work in Palacios, and Shirley Brothers did the work on that, and they did the work in Palacios, so it's a valid number.
It is, yes.
It's a valid number, and again, with today's material costs. But if we can find some money somewhere, we can continue on. And I apologize for having left y'all out of the conversation originally.
Well, it's all right.
Move on then to agenda item 5. Receive status report on special projects, status report regarding TECQ inspection on January the 20, June
June.
2022, track 1717A.
By way of update, on Monday, March 13th, we submitted to TCQ the documentation that showed that CRG Environmental had properly disposed of the potentially contaminated soil at that we had collected out there at the landfill, or our former landfill at Harbor Refuge, and had disposed of it at the Victoria landfill. And then on March 16th, we received a second round of questions and comments back from the TCQ Municipal Solid Waste Division on the request to disturb the cover and voluntary restoration of the area along the shoreline. Matt believes that most, if not all, of these questions he has actually already answered in what's been previously submitted. So it's just a matter of going down and pointing these things out to them and sending it back to TCQ. And Corpus did let me know that once we get the approval from the Texas Municipal, from the Municipal Solid Waste Division, then they will close their complaint file. So we weren't under as far as they're concerned, we're not under any deadline to actually do it from the enforcement side in Corpus. They will close that file once we get permission from Municipal Solid Waste, but then we'll want to move forward with getting that work done.
That's done all it needs to do. We're just waiting on them to send us a letter of closure.
Well, we've got
to point real big where the notes are that they were asking for. They asked for dimensions and we gave dimensions.
Yeah, they said, provide this, this, and this, and this. Well, he did. And so we've just got to go back and say, okay, this is on page X. This is on page Y. Point it out to them because I guess it wasn't clear enough for whatever reason. Which is not uncommon.
Our government at work.
Yeah.
No, they're not working at school.
Pretty good news.
Yes, it is. Yeah, that they're going to close, the file as far as us being in trouble or anything.
Yeah.
Once we get that permission, they're not gonna, pursue anything else.
All right. We'll move on to agenda item 6. Receive Harbor Masters Operation Promotion Development Activity Report. And we approved all our properties, City Harbor, Marina Land and Building, Marina, Nautical Land and Marina, Smith Harbor and Harbor Refuge. Mr. Rudolph?
Well, City Harbor. Miller seafood lease, it'll be coming up here pretty quick, and we're gonna have a letter from him to exercise his second and last option on his lease. The Big Bear lease is up 30th of June, and I know Jody's been working on that. She's
Yep.
had questions for me, so.
Yeah, basically at this point, what we're looking at is some indication from the Port Commission as far, because there'll be a brand new lease. What do we want to consider as far as a lease payment? What he's paying, I've looked at it and try to quantify the land that he has, and it works out to be, I'm coming up with 923 square feet. Is what he's got adjacent to the dock slip. He's paying what, $361 now. So, what do we, thinking about as far as a rental rate for that track? Well, we don't, they didn't give, the boat slips. Track 3, which is adjacent to it, is at $2.61 a square foot for the land. But of course, there's 7 boat slips that come with that. I had looked at, and I left that sheet of paper, I think, on my desk, but when I looked at it, no, that's not the one. When I looked at it, if I look at the square footage of the land, that came up to around $200 a month. If I take the whole value of track 3 and divide it by 7 slips, and 1/7 of that was like $226 a month. We were looking at Seadrift, and theirs was $30 a linear foot, and so that worked out to $125 a month for just the slip. So I mean, if we take the 125-ish for slip plus the 226 whatever for the land, I mean, bottom line, we're kind of generally in the area that he's at now. I mean, certainly not greater. So, I mean, one option maybe you look at what he's paying now and apply the municipal cost index, which currently is running just under 5%. Of course, we've got another month or so to kind of wait and see how things are going to finalize an amount. But, trying to get at what amount are we looking at generally, and what do we want to offer or be willing to accept as far as a term length.
In view of economic pressure, we have track 9 that we're trying to do something with. We're looking at the former Everwood property, which we need to aggressively market. His lease. So we have to kind of be cautionary when we move on this. It's a buyer's market, not a seller. So we kind of have to be careful on how we move forward on these rates. We want to keep these people in business or help them stay in business and not overload them and bring them crashing down as we've seen the economy do for the past few years. So if y'all will communicate with Jody your thoughts and help her come to a suitable arrangement. And I will visit with her later. We've had some conversations about that property in the past.
Yeah, my goal would be to I mean, I can tell you, I did talk to Mark, and he is definitely interested in a new lease. He wants to stay there. And I explained to him it's a brand new lease, complete new document. But the goal would be to have something to at least do an initial review at the next meeting, because we would want this, and we would want to vote on it in June, because it ends.
He's been a long term and a good tenant, but we do need to find a balance.
Jody, is there any way you might be able to send us an email comparing apples to apples?
Yes, yeah.
The Seadrift location, what we have
Yeah.
currently.
I'll send you, and I didn't have it done before we sent it out Friday, but yeah, I'll send you my calculations, trying to just kind of think through it and try to justify a number. Yeah.
Make it super simple.
Yeah.
Jesse mentioned, remember, the Seadrift had doubled theirs in the last year. So I think a lot of
Well, I mean, I think they did. And what I come up with when they doubled is because, their budget had been $55,000 a year revenue, and now it's 100 and something. So I think that's where the double comes from.
109.
Yeah. But then the actual values were $30.
The thing that's kind of deceiving with this, and I've never reached, I don't have this, but this is their harbor system rates. And, these are all annual. These aren't monthly. Well, if you break them down to a monthly rate, I mean, they're way below our rates, or, what we've been charging. So I think what's happened is,
You talking about secret?
Yes, sir. What I think what's happened is people look at these rates and like, whoa, they went up to $760 a month. Well, that's not really the case,
Let's get a front check on that, yeah, that's not my understanding.
Well, actually, some of it's pretty self-explanatory about looking at this. Now, I do have a call into Leonard, which is the police chief, harbor master, et cetera, et cetera. And I have yet to hear from him, but there's a little bit of detail I'd like to see on a couple of.
But yeah, we want to get that clarified because yeah, we want to use that as a basis for what we come up with too.
But I mean, they're like basically $2.50 a linear foot. So,
If we're reading it right, yeah.
Well, I want to bring your attention now back to, we have another vacancy here on the horizon with the former Evelyn. Need y'all's help. The Port Commission try to market that property.
Yeah, we put a for rent sign up.
Well, and I'm thinking we probably should clear those windows so that you see the for rent. Or spend a few dollars and put a big banner that says for rent,
Okay.
not a little bitty drive-through, but clear the window so it does appear, available. Take that wild weed sign down, just let's market the property and looking for suggestions. Again, for that property and track 9, my suggestion for track 9 was put it in the newspaper and that was a total bust. Yeah. So looking for other suggestions. An idea, marketing, because we need to get those properties moved. Little revenue is better than no revenue. We've experienced that track 9 now going on 2 years. And talking about track 9, we've had Mr. Eagle out working on that because we've had some interlopers there. And he's had the police department and stickers and stuff. And if you would stay on top of that.
well, Joey, our code enforcement guy, he's been kind of taking care of that.
Jody been doing that. I thought that was the police department that was doing that.
Well, I did have the police
I'm
department.
sorry, sir.
I did have the police department go over there. Sometimes I have to detail what needs to be done because their purview is dealing with people directly, law enforcement on calls.
Right.
So the way I see it is I'm operating off of ordinance. Well, the police department's not looking at the ordinance like I do when it comes to situations like this. So in turn, I have to provide them knowledge on how to enforce that. And they do it. They're great with doing it. But what I had outlined to Jim is proper signage in that area would be appreciated.
I know we have signs in parts of it. And the poor boys, because of the disturbance that we created. And we need to address that. Lencho has got a couple of boats parked on part of track 9. But I think he's probably used up his good graces. He came up with a plan and never followed through with it. So we do need to make that property available to a new tenant, hopefully shortly if we can get it leased. And I appreciate what you're doing and thank you and please continue. With Jim's help between the two of y'all. But we need to get it leased and we need to keep it controlled and as far as signs. Do we need a motion on that, Jody?
No. We'll work on that.
Set a big banner that says for rent on that one and probably over there on track 9 also. Property available.
But those two boats, the super boats been tied up there for a long time.
Yeah.
Little
Yeah.
body place machine shop.
Yes, sir. We allowed that because he had posts and all that. When we dredged Smith Harbor. He had no place else to go and we allowed him that. We asked him for a plan and him and Mr. Tesovich had agreed to put poles down where he's at now. Some time back and still has not been done. So we need to bring a little pressure to bear there and see if we can't get it done. But property for lease on track 9 and property for lease on. Hopefully it'll be less than that $1,200 I blew on newspaper ads.
I think it was more than that.
Was it more than that?
Twice that, I think.
Great idea, just work.
It was very expensive.
One phone call.
Now, of course, I guess we've already addressed that. Track 9 and 9A, but that track 7, 8, and 11, that's the old. I was referred to it as the old Evelyn property. One of the things, we were leasing that property for, I think, what was it, $3,200 a month. And if you look through this Valdez report, they're like 1,600. So I don't know how do you want to.
We included 3 slips in that.
Yeah.
Yeah, 6.
Well, I think that lease didn't it have like 3 slips. I mean,
Well, I mean, it's the square footage.
well, yeah, it was.
I mean, it's just like even all of, everything at City Harbor. In their report, there's nothing that identifies slips, the track 3, 4, 5, 6, 12, that it's based upon the square footage of land. But of course, there is adjacent water with slips available, but we're not looking at square footage of slips. It's just there's additional slips. He's got a square foot price, and the square foot he's using is the land.
So we need to inform Richard.
I'm just going to ask some
about the
clarification on that. Yeah.
Yeah, because not just there, but at Harbor of Refuge, that bulkhead has got tremendous value. And the city just got through spending, I don't know, I guess, what is that, over 600,000 between the lower dock and the upper dock. So there has to be a recuperation there of some sort. Well, that's right, we spent, I think, 120 on the finger pier, so there's value there that we're not capturing. If you'll share that information with Richard and tell him, hey, this is what it costs
Yeah.
us to put those finger piers there at Scully's and around the corner. So that we can try to capture some of our revenue. We put the tie-ups on the low dock, and the upper dock is a cosmetic event for the future, because we're gonna have people up there with restaurants and walk through paths. The handles. So that really doesn't come into our purview, but it is part of our property. But continue, please, Jim.
Yeah, I wanted to ask this question, that the Evelyn's property, does it need to be a retail fish market, or could it be something else?
Well, main money is always made to sell money.
Right.
So are you calling it a retail fish market, or are you calling it a bait shop? Most of the money, that's what you ever got, for salt bait. And I think beforehand, I think also we borrow also, but also use it as a bait shop.
Well, there was one gentleman that had called me last week that showed some interest. And I told him I would bring it up in the commission meeting. Now, I've had a couple of people that have been interested, but not at $3,200 a month. They're just no way. So, I mean, I don't know.
What was interested in doing?
This guy, this is the guy that has that hydration on it. He wanted it. He called and was asking about it.
They can't. But they're paying it on $200.
Has anyone spoke to Mark about moving his location from the back of the harbor to the front? There's loading available to him, which he does now. Ease of getting in and out is so much greater in the facilities that he has up on the hill, but then open up the hill for the city,
I haven't mentioned it to him, but I don't
that conversation.
know.
And
Like Jim said, I don't think at that price he would be interested, but maybe it's, yeah. I'll mention that to him.
They want another location.
Yeah.
You know, hire a real estate agent. You know, hire a real estate agent, representative on this. Somebody from out of town, who's coming from waterfront properties, and marketing. We don't have that skill set here.
I went out of town and took a walk.
His name on the property. advertise it out in his areas.
Well, I guess, you know, as Rotary members. Mention it to our local real estate agents that we're desperate and we will pay.
You need somebody who's doing business of doing. They see waterfront property, that may come out of Lockwood, it may come out of. They might flash us not,
Port Connor. The farmfront property.
I don't know, you got to have somebody represents.
And continue, please, Jeff.
Okay. Nautical Lanes building. Bearbrick Construction, they commenced work on 16. They fixed the north end wall of the building. They fixed the cupola. That's been all corrected. We're fixing to get on some deck boards. The electrical, there's problems with electrical boxes and things of this nature. That part of the project made me set back 4 or 5 months.
Because of delivery.
Delivery, yes. On some panels, things of this nature.
Lack of equipment.
The supply chain issues.
I'm experiencing that myself.
So we'll keep you posted on that. Nautical Lanes Marina, still dealing with the this boat. I do have some paperwork I've been trying to research, and I talked to Anne Marie about it. It's like a Parks and Wildlife storage lien, kind of like a mechanics lien. A lot of paperwork to it, but if we can navigate our way through it, maybe we can get rid of some boats. I just need a little bit of clarification on some stuff. I don't understand it enough, some of the wording. But I mean, I know we can get through it. It's just gonna take a bit to do it. The abandoned boat, still dealing with that. The Horizon Environmental Group, they were there 13 times. Actually, of this writing, they've probably been there another 3 or 4. They were there this morning. So,
This pollution comes from boats and slips,
what's that in part?
with Horizon Environmental. What do they do?
They're cleaning up the plastic pellets. Yes,
Really?
yes, sir.
It may be because Ponce Bay, they're actively cleaning that Ponce Bay area. So that activity may be loosening or creating loosening that material instead of solving it.
They think it has the way railroad. And the white rail car, you don't see it. They're coming along down the plant. All the way up. So, and then they're now requiring that the railroad cars be sealed when they get them, when they leave. And if they're not, they refuse them. Plant. So I think that may slow it down, but I think most of this comes from railroads. Where else would it come from? It gets in a watershed way out nowhere.
It's weird. Where it be coming from, it's free, it's gotta get.
Well, that's the thing. The chocolate spray could be totally 100% finished.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty well went back in there now. They're finished. They dug it out 6, 8 feet. I'm more. It's they're probably they're not gonna have it local. I think it's gonna always come from rail cars and they go up the way, and after they're dumped, they weren't sealed on the way back, so.
How much money does this amount to? One.
Those guys.
Oh, they're clean, what they're doing? I don't know. I really don't know.
Expensive.
Who's paying for
From
it?
You know, the guy that, the insurance, I'm trying to get control of it, but not. And, check with them to promote the person, whoever that is, to control of it. And I'm asked questions several times, and I'm getting answers. What they're trying to do. You know, there is one person here in the town who goes out and looks for pellets and he reports. them.
But they're not doing that much anymore.
He's
I don't,
good anymore.
no, I don't hardly see them at all anymore. I used to see them all the time,
Yeah.
but that's all kind of stopped. Now, I can tell you, the guy's name was Anthony, and he was with, what was that environmental group? Where we had a meeting with, Mike, you were there.
Yeah, it's freezing.
Prison, yeah.
And so anyway, Anthony invited me, they had this drum looking attachment that went on the front of a skid steer. And they were trying to figure out if that would clean up any of these pellets, and it was kind of a wire mesh thing anyway. It didn't appear to work very well to me. But anyway, yeah, but he told me, he had told me that the pellets, you don't see many on the east side of the bay, on the upper end of the bay. Most of it starts just east of Garfield's Creek and then kind of runs down the shoreline all the way to Indianola. And then they don't really show up again on the east side of the bay until you get around the port area. And then they show up real heavy in there and then they disappear again. But I can tell you, we walked that, and I never looked for them on our shoreline at the house, but we were at, when Anthony invited me to come out and watch him work that shoreline. This area was out by the 6 Mile boat ramp, and there were pellets all over the place. And I think what happens, and I asked him about this, and he kind of felt the same way. You know, we get these storm tides. We just had one last week. The whole 6 Mile Creek flat area was totally underwater. And I think the pellets, they get washed up and they get up underneath all that salt grass, and then, you know, they sit there dormant, and then you get another one, and it, depending on, you know, the flow out, I mean, it's dragging the pellets back out. That's what my thought is. I don't think it's so much new ones. No, everything is shut. Yes. Yeah, everything is shut in.
Somewhere else.
Well, my question, well, I don't want to say too much here, but, you know,
Yes.
you know, we had a pretty good idea where they were coming from, and I made some comments, and sure enough, that is where they were coming from. They went and looked, and there was, but that's been, that area has been shut in for a long time now. So,
Don't they get through Coffee Creek? That's pretty line to pay attention over here.
well, I asked about the marsh. You know, you got that marsh downstream of Caucus Creek, and Anthony told me that whole marsh was very, very clean. There was hardly nothing below that spillway or dam or whatever you want to call it there at Caucus Creek. So
At least we're not in the pay for it.
Yes. And I hope we will get some money from them to have.
okay, Smith Harbor, we're fixing to get on them spoils. We're not gonna spend a lot of money, but we are gonna try to. Yeah, I think we can work on it. I drove my truck. Yeah, I drove my city truck up on top of them here with.
I see people driving on top of the.
But
Can we get somebody to shape that?
yeah, we're just gonna kind of shape and clean it up where it's a lot easier to walk on. And I don't want to spend a lot of money because most of that's gonna go away with the living shoreline project.
Yeah.
On some of that marsh, building marsh and things. of
They'll
this
be
nature.
using that material up, so we don't
Yeah.
want to do a whole lot, put a lot of money in.
So, yeah, I've been back on that, so we'll probably be on, we'll probably start that in the next month or so. Then of course, Harbor Refuge, you know, Lester Contracting, they've been hauling a lot of material out there. We've actually spread it out once. We're to a point where we're gonna have to do something again, as far as spreading it out, but I'm thinking we're gonna try to find another location to start, stockpiling it up out there. So, and that's gonna get with me, I guess tomorrow, we're gonna go out there and take a look at that place. Of course, sir, dirt. We actually did, there was some, I'm gonna call it select field, clay, sandy stuff, and we didn't spread it out. We kind of pushed it up and stockpiled it up and actually kind of worked on the road some. You know, where the road was rutted real bad. Kind of put a maintainer, built it up and kind of crammed it to keep the water off of it. So hopefully it won't get the ruts all back in.
Talk about the road rutted real bad. I'm gonna take you back to Smith Harbor. I don't know if you've noticed on that east side of the harbor. We had put, the crushed concrete there at the crossover. From
Right.
The, seawall on our property. You may consider that visit with Jody, because it looks to me like we could stand a few loads.
Right around the corner there. Yes, it's kind of,
It's gonna take, but it's looking real messy down there.
I think what that is, you know, and I don't know how well it's gonna correct that problem. But I think what you got going on there is that's a lot of, we get these heavy rains, that's a lot of runoff that's running and ending up right there from all the spoil. Yes. But I mean, we could try and see. I don't know. They're not really doing a lot of concrete cushion at the moment.
Okay.
But as soon as they start, we could certainly get 3 or 4 loads of that. Yeah.
Seeing that get bigger and muddier, you know.
Yeah.
Pretty much along. Go ahead.
Okay, so and then of course I had Gonzalez. They did spread that first material that LCI brought out. And then of course Alcoa on the 7th of March, they completed hauling all the mulch off. Encore's they're still cleaning and kind of continuing to move over to track 11. It's not going quite as quick as we would hope, but they're moving in that direction. I was told by the end of next month, they were supposed to be out of there by this month, but I was told that that's not going to happen. It'll be probably the end of April before they're completely. So, the cleanup of track 3, we got a price from Republic to bring a roll-off box. Of course, anything with Republic is not easy. They gave us an estimate of about $2,600 if we loaded the box, and that's where, you know, the track 3 there at the Harbor Refuge where LaCoy had all that lease.
As much revenue as they get from the city of Port Lavaca, they won't donate a roll-off.
Well, we have certain ones that will be donated, but this this wouldn't fit in that. I don't think this is like specialty waste or
Yeah, we gotta do a profile. It's not simple, put it that way. So I kind of got off of that and I'm trying to track down Nancy with Axis Demolition and actually talked to Mr. Dent. And he got a hold of her and she was supposed to call me. This was Friday. I have not heard from her
Now,
yet.
they're the ones that did the harbor last time.
Right, right.
Such a low phenomenal.
Right.
90,000, 10,000.
Yeah.
Excellent idea.
Well, we're gonna, and I'm gonna, when I do finally get with her, I'm just gonna tell her, hey, we'll, all you need to do is bring a truck, we'll load it. You just need for me to haul it off and dispose of it.
You'll get Mr. Gonzalez or somebody, because the city's not gonna have. the-
No, Encore.
I think
Encore.
Encore, they,
They'll send them.
yeah, they said they would load it, they would load it.
Okay.
So, that's kind of where we're at with that.
Do we need to move to hire Encore or not Encore, but Axis?
Well,
No,
if I get a hold of them,
Yeah,
you know, hopefully it should be.
I heard that they did us a real good turn last time, so hopefully it'll happen again. Agenda item 6.
Okay, the rail. We're fixing to spend another, I think that y'all have that paperwork in your packet. There's two actually, cost of item 1 and cost of item 2. That item 1 is actually we haven't done the work yet. We're kind of waiting on Helen to get off the track. They have a lot of cars down there. And that's about what we've been spending. Last year we spent, I think, 7,200 on the rail. Now this other number you see closer to the bottom, this total cost item 2, that is to repair switch 2, which we never worked on switch 2. Helena said they did not need switch 2, but for some reason they brought a lot of cars in here a month or so ago, and Union Pacific opened the switch, put cars on it. And this switch that's in question here, we're talking about, is a switch on the east side of it. There'd be the east track is where this switch is. Well, the switch was, first off, the switch had never been used. We'd never maintained it. Like I said, because Helen said they didn't need it. And when Union Pacific tried to open it or switch the switch, there's kind of a dip in the track right there. And the switch would not pull in, supposed to kind of pull in under the existing rail. Well, they didn't do that. They just pulled it over as tight as they could. It's wonder the car didn't fall off, actually. But anyway, they got it in, got them on there. We got the cars off now. I talked to Helena. They don't really want to spend any money fixing the switch because they say they will not be using it. So.
Well, I see a mobilization, demobilization on item 2. We're looking here at about $15,000. Is that not something that's doable in our budget? I mean, they're already going to be out there.
Well, which one's that for? That's not, I think that's my pack.
The bottom is switch joint, the 5,000 something.
Well, either on bicycle.
Well,
We're talking about, we're gonna block it.
We're gonna
That's-
lock it. We're gonna lock, when they come out, we're gonna lock that switch out so nobody can mess with it. Because you know, that's gonna work just like this. But if the car would have fell off, Union Pacific's the one that, it's gonna be the city's fault, not anybody else's.
Yeah, but we're doing this, right? I mean, we already got,
We're doing the top one.
we've
That's
already got a PO on
Yes,
this,
yes.
so it's just,
They're not going to have that many cars again, ever.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't.
The minute you pick it up, sort of, they don't need it, I promise.
Well,
Then where you gonna be?
they've never used it until a month ago. So I don't know. Hopefully we'll see the tariff number come up. We spent, just for grants here, back in 20. I don't know if everybody remembers, but the spur got shut down because of lack of maintenance. I didn't know much about the spur. I didn't even know the city owned that spur at the time. Jody knew very little about it. She knew the city owned it, but didn't know much about it. So we had to spend $41,000 in March of 21 to get it back up and going. And then we spent another 18,000 in September of that same year. And then it appears that we're spending $7,000 to $8,000 a year on that rail. Going forward, last year, it kind of we didn't spend hardly anything on it last year because we were fixing to, and I was asked to try to carry it into this following year. So we kind of it'll be doubled up this year, but it should be about $7,000 to $8,000 a year is what it appears.
and we're bringing in 10.
Yeah.
For the money last time, but we didn't charge enough for the rail spur, and now it's come back to.
The fee itself over the annual fee is about $10,000, $9,996, and then usually the tariffs are running around 4,000 a year. So, last year, the total receive was about $14,000. And then of course we didn't pay out much because I carried that work into this year, but it should have been that we would have been on the positive side about $6,600. And then
submitted a proposal of $1,200 and it got trimmed down to 800 and something. When it comes back up again this year, we need to look at that. But I'm of the opinion that we go ahead and fix that switch because not today, then tomorrow. It's already there. That mobilization fee will save us some money. I don't know what y'all's opinions are, but. I think it's.
Have you talked to Peter?
Yeah.
Have you personally talked to them?
Yeah.
What we're thinking about this, you know,
Not bad, not bad.
just south.
Right.
Just south. And I, is that deep hole. Right there next to the track, about 6 or 8 feet from the track.
Right.
I can't believe it has suspension on that. We asked him to take a look at that.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
have,
Marbles up there. It's about 2 or 3
We-
cars.
we have, you know, and believe it or not, Matt's looked at it. And, I mean, I don't know if he wants to elaborate on it. I think those pipes, I don't know if they're 7 or 8 foot, they're pretty good size diameter. And they're about 80 feet across there, 2 of them. And they're not in real good shape. And Matt's looked at it. I don't know, you want to elaborate on that?
Jody sent me a picture.
Yeah, we're looking at different options of how to try to replace. No, it's a big, the drainage, metal, corrugated metal pipe that's under the railroad, the corporation ditch that
It kinda
goes.
comes down and
Yeah.
corporation, you know, comes down, crosses South Virginia 1090, and then it directly runs back kind of to the east, I guess. And
I
then
know,
the
I mean,
big pipes.
One option we were looking at is some kind of a shotcrete
Right.
type, application.
That's on the city side?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the ditch runs under the track and then runs a little bit and it runs out and dumps between the LaQuay and the track 11 property there.
I think the main thing is, these time take out, have they ever looked at it?
No, I let it, he told me that probably ought to talk to Lester about it. And I kind of turned, Jody had talked to.
Yeah, and
somebody.
Yeah, and they said they really hadn't done anything like that. That's why you said talk to us.
Ken, the question
So we've been-
is it too unsafe to use today?
I don't think so.
Well,
I mean,
they have, down the cave, did they say that?
no, they did. And if you look at the rail's pretty straight and level right.
I just like saying, when I looked at it, it's 40 feet deep there. Off the side, which means a monster amount of water coming through there.
Yeah.
Wash that out. I assume that. I looked at it and I'm a great fishing hole, but I'm very concerned about this collapsing there and falling off with one of those 900-ton rail cars.
We'll put that on the agenda for next.
I mean, we are
Maybe
looking.
we'll look at
Yeah,
that,
we are
get
looking
some
at that.
information from Diamond and them.
I think it's more serious than that.
But,
Yes.
What did Jim say? About it, just to give it a lesson?
He said, well, yeah, certainly you need to be corrected, but
And I think,
they don't, he said, I can certainly take the tracks apart, he said, but I don't.
Did he see any problem with the tracks?
No,
No,
like I
tracks
say,
are
it was
fine.
pretty straight, the track was pretty straight. and level.
Did Keeper say anything about the stability?
No,
He didn't say.
Jamie, would you mind just going up there, take a look at it?
No, I'm good.
I mean, you're not right out there, we'll look at it, I'll show you.
Okay, well, about 4 or 5 feet. The track where it falls off.
Something like that, yeah, pretty good size hole. I mean, it, we filled it with limestone.
If we want to have a fuel one. You got tank rolls off there and bus and we are.
We'll be on the news.
yeah,
I like that.
If you go just straight down South Virginia, well, you know, have a past Raymond's house, the road kind of goes back to the right. And we'll see the track right there. You got the LaQuay property and the fence, and as soon as the fence ends, you'll see the track crossing and it's right there south of the road.
Watch out, don't fall in.
you know,
Serious.
Yeah, I know, that's what that is, a secret fishing hole, there's people out there, in the winter time.
there are licensed and registered railroad inspectors that do exactly what we
He
do.
is one. Well, his Peter is one. Okay.
Yeah.
He's probably, I've dealt with a bunch of them, and he's probably the best.
I think it would have evaluated by somebody like that before we wind up with a stuff.
Yeah.
You know, build stuff in the day or who knows what all.
Well, they come every quarter and look at it. I mean, he didn't,
Let's get a report specifically on that,
okay.
that culvert.
Hopefully if it becomes a priority.
Well, they know- I mean-
we'll call a Special meeting, but we'll leave that to our next meeting's agenda. Going back to what we're facing with now.
Consider
They just wait for the crew to report.
today.
What
They could get when they come to
all the ties and bad. Yeah, Joe out of Victoria, what's his name? Gonzalez. Is it Joe Gonzalez that works for UP?
There's no telling, they move around like crazy.
But he's the one that condemned it. Like I say, I didn't know much about any of that. But we replaced a bunch of ties.
Well, because if they, anytime you can come in, they feel it's not safe, they're gonna say, oh, that's the whole person, the out.
Well, I can tell you this, our spur is in way better shape than UP drill coming into town. By far. You know, and I didn't know much about rail here a couple of years ago, and of course, I'm not an expert, but I can sure tell you that. Yes.
That's their answers. That's their,
Yes.
they're not worried about theirs, they're worried
No.
about yours.
Don't worry about ours.
After significant funding by Michael Dwyer, we're asking you to follow up on this expeditiously and get us a report. If necessary, we will call a special agenda, or if it's an emergency, it'll get done. I'm not concerned about that. Back to the problem that we're facing now. We have a bad piece of track and a bad switch. It's. We probably needed a motion to authorize this expenditure. It's again, it's in the neighborhood of about 15,000.
Well, we've already done the 7,500.
Can it wait? Let's wait and let him get with Keeper and see about this.
Right.
There's no sense in mobilizing again, it's gonna take it out and go back in.
Two completely different areas. So this
That's right.
these are side by side. The other one.
You still got the mobilization and all that stuff, it's gonna be a another charge, you're gonna have to come back down here. Just suggesting it,
No,
see what he says,
we respect what you're saying.
just see what Keeper says about the subgrade and everything underneath it by that pipe. If you gotta come pull that track. While paying to do it twice, I mean, come down here twice.
That makes sense.
Yep.
Yeah. When you're better off coordinating.
Yeah, coordinate and do it all.
Too, so you don't shut that track out of service for longer periods. You get it fine.
It's got no Bible about that road tonight, you out, I agree.
So we're just going to continue as we are move forward with agenda or not the agenda. I don't.
Personally, this one.
Huh?
How, this, that he has on here. Is it imminent? Does it need to be done?
What?
This work here,
The 7,500.
No, it's not.
we're gonna wait another month till you talk to him.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's not, yeah, no, we're okay. with all that. Just the spur rack, and we shouldn't be.
When you meet with him, let me know, I'll meet you over there. So then. Are you around, you go too? That's my suggestion anyway.
We'll move in with agenda item 1, move agenda item 2 to the inspection of the crossing at the same time and get a report on that. Yeah.
And then, of course, the
Expense and.
last item here is the aerial spraying. I don't think we'll do any of that until Encore's completely out of there. I'm gonna look back at that, see if that's really what we want to do or not.
Move on to agenda item number 7, it's comments from commissioners. Mr. Whitman.
I was good, it's like there's progress. Not always fast. But
Ms. Sue.
Yahoo. Progress.
James.
Good.
I really don't have any comments for once. I want somebody to vocalize enough today. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So we do. Second.
A motion. Seconded, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No nays. We get to get out of here. Motion carries.
Doctor, good job.